Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Always an honor to have this man. You hear his music every single day on my show. It's the theme of the show, Love Grenade by Ted Nugent. Ted, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm doing so good, Joe. It's kind of crazy in this treacherous world, but I, the Motor City Madman, brings light to the darkness. The music is awesome. The family is awesome. The spirit is awesome. I'm having the time of my life in spite of the dirt bags that seem to be everywhere.
I got to tell you something, man. Well, first of all, we have to enjoy the freedoms and liberties that we have, even though there's a push to take them away. I want to start by telling people that you have stopped nationally touring, which you could have continued until you're 100 if you wanted to, but you decided to back off of that. But you are doing some localized, smaller shows where I think this is great because people can get a close-up look at exactly what it is that you do. I'm honored that I was able to go backstage with you many times at the gigantic tours and see what that was all about. But a lot of people don't have access to you like that. And I think this is going to be great. You're going to be in Hamilton, Texas on Saturday, tomorrow. That's at The Grain. And then on the 26th, Orange Grove, Texas, early May, Waco. We'll talk about these dates as we do the interview. But I'm so glad that you're still doing this. I was afraid you weren't going to play in front of audiences all anymore, but that's in your blood, isn't it?
Yeah, that's impossible. I'll never stop. You know, I'm a pretty strong, independent, rugged individual, but I'm not in charge of my life. Mrs. Nugent and my dogs are in charge of my life, and I will never spend the night in another hotel. That's all there is to that. Hotels are jail. I live on Paradise here at Spirit Wild Ranch. We film Ted Nugent's Spirit of the Wild TV every day. It's on 8 times a week on the Pursuit Channel. I do my Real America's Voice Spirit Campfire. Shemaine does her Real America Voice, Faith and Freedom. I train my dogs every day. I'm involved with all the politics. I work with the GOP. I work with the Donald Trump team. I work with the Mike Lindell election integrity team. So I'm so radical, Joe, that I actually experiment in self-government. But my music is so powerful. Now, we're not playing Hamilton tomorrow because of a rainstorm coming.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna do The Grain, and these are old school, like Amboy Dukes at the Cellar in 1965. It's just a roustabout, nuts and bolts speakeasy. What John Coots on the drums. Again, Joe, you've seen for 66 years. I have been honored and moved and stimulated and inspired and blessed to have the greatest musicians. John Coots on drums is an animal. James Brown would hire my rhythm section. Johnny Big on bass guitar. But we play James Brown stuff and Chuck Berry stuff and Rolling Stones and Motown Funk Brothers stuff. We play all my classics. If I wasn't me, Joe, I'd be in the front row because I love my songs. So we're going to play the Two Frogs, Ardmore, Oklahoma on May 4th, the 40th anniversary of Lone Star Music at the Backyard in Waco on May 3rd, May 10th at the Grain in Hamilton. It's so cool. I'm playing a granary. This is awesome. But we played at the Bucks Backyard in Buda, Texas last week. Had a record attendance of 4,000 real music lovers. It was the ultimate celebration of what Chuck Berry and James Brown and Motown, what they taught us. And we still have that spirit. So the music is eternal. Nobody's going to stop me. I'm only 75. I'm just getting warmed up.
It is Ted Nugent. Go to tednugent.com. Ted, I'm assuming you can find out all the dates and the changes of dates and whatever on the website. Just go to tednugent.com.
I'm guessing. I'm hoping my team has these dates to get the Ted Nugent.
I'll bet they do.
The Speakeasy Rockouts at tednugent.com. Plus, I just signed another. This is amazing, Joe. There's a real spirit of American defiance out there. I signed another 10,000 of these. You can get these at tednugent.com. But people are really rallying around. My soundtrack has always been about critical thinking, freedom, life, liberty, the pursuit of gonzo happiness. So there's a real blending of the political constitutionalism of my core beliefs and the soundtrack that goes with it. So these are the greatest days of my music. I'm a lucky, lucky man.
And you sound as good, if not better than ever. It's Ted Nugent. If he's anywhere near you, go and check it out. If I'm getting what you're laying down, Ted, you're only doing dates and concerts or get-togethers where you can go back home the same night.
That's right. I got to sleep in my own bed. Mrs. Nugent has a nice warm bath ready for me, and I do some snorkeling. Just before I go to bed.
I love it. All right, well, listen, make sure you go and check them out no matter where you go. Because I've seen you at Pine Knob. I've seen you at Van Andel Arena. I've seen you at gigantic, arenas, which is an experience in and of itself. But the closer, the more intimate stuff where you've got fewer people. I mean, this is going to be amazing. For anybody who hasn't seen Ted in a long time, go to tednugent.com, find out when he's going to be near you. Ted, I've got to ask you about some of the current events because it's getting crazy. We're seeing our friend Donald Trump in New York being charged with things that the statute of limitations ran out. They were misdemeanors pumped up to federal crimes somehow, felonies. an attachment with crimes that the FEC said that he didn't do. There is no case in New York. So what's the plan? I mean, he should be exonerated, but you've got a New York jury. You never know. But what's the plan? Is it just to keep him off the trail? They know they can't really throw him in prison. That's not going to happen. What's going on here?
Well, number one, Joe, when you speak about these current, there's a military term I guess I can't use on your show, but the first half of it is cluster. There's a royal cluster whack going on across America, and the term lawfare, I'm glad they coined that term because right now, Uncle Sam, with this freak snake, this embarrassing, treasonous, criminal, corrupt gangster Joe Biden. Those adjectives are absolutely irrefutable and accurate and appropriate.
They are.
They have weaponized our court system, and they are attacking a man who did make America strong, safe, free, reduce crime, close the borders. There was not fentanyl slaughtering going on under Donald Trump, but there is under Joe Biden. This Joe Biden gangster Democrat regime is just toxic to the American dream, to freedom, to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Joe Biden, the commander-in-chief, as if he violates his sacred oath to the Constitution every day. And the manifestation of cultural deprivation is the past president being charged with where there's no crime, there's no victim, there's no wrongdoing.
Right.
In New York, where you have these mindless, soulless zombies that think that open borders and welcoming fentanyl into America and relocating invaders, this is Planet of the Cuckoo's Nest stuff. But the most important thing I can say, Joe, is when you articulate the truth, logic, and common sense regarding these social issues, you nail it. Everybody I know says, say hi to Joe Paggs and thank you for celebrating truth, logic, and common sense. You're exactly what the founding fathers wanted all Americans to be: suspicious of authority, and we the people spotlighting cockroaches who violate their oath. We pay their salary. They owe us a job, and they're all violent, including the Republicans. I mean, right now I'm having a battle with Texas Parks and Wildlife because these jackbooted goons are going to private ranches in Texas. Listen to this, Joe. And they're forcing the landowner off their property while they hire goons to slaughter private deer herds that have no disease. They even test them after they slaughter them. They don't have the disease, and they force landowners off their own property in Texas. Texas Parks and Wildlife, we're coming to get you. You people don't deserve to be in Texas. You're violating your oath, and you're violating the very premise of freedom in the great Republic of Texas. Texas Parks and Wildlife, out of control, Joe. It's really a heartbreaker.
Well, on what authority, Ted? What gives them the authority? Listen, property taxes already is theft. They can already take your property if you don't pay your property taxes, and you have no say on where that money goes. But on what authority does Texas Wildlife have to come on your ranch and say, we're going to do whatever we want, you can't stop us?
They're pulling it out of their ass. When you ask why isn't Hillary Clinton in jail? Why isn't Lon Horiachi facing a firing squad for murdering Vicki Weaver? Why did the ATF raid the executive director of the Little Rock, Arkansas airport and shoot him in his house at night instead of just arresting him at his office? I mean, I could go on and on with a lot of whys. All I can tell you is that the abuse of power in America today is at an unprecedented criminal level. And Texas Parks, and I didn't expect it in Texas. Yeah. I mean, Jeff Hildebrand, Dave Yakovitz, Jay Hunter Reed. This guy is a pervert from New Jersey who thinks that you should be able to twerk your ass to little boys and girls. He's a drag queen guy, Jay Hunter Reed, and he's in charge of deer hunting in Texas. The things I'm saying, your brain says Nugent must be exaggerating because it's so outrageous. I have the documentation, the paper trail. Chronic waste and disease has never hurt a deer herd anywhere. People cannot get chronic waste and disease from eating chronic waste and disease deer. They've slaughtered almost 400,000 deer looking for it, and they've only found 0.018%. But those other thousands of deer are slaughtered while they arrest the landowner and forbid him to witness the jackbooted government. Your brain rejects what I'm saying. It's so wrong. But there is no reason why. They're abusing their power. They're abusing their authority, and we're going to put an end to it.
There is something that's happening here in Texas, and I want everybody watching and listening across the nation right now to understand this, because it's coming to a neighborhood near you. Our legislature was voted red. We voted the Senate and the House to be red, to be Republican, to be conservative. But you know this because you live in Texas like I do. They're not acting like conservatives. In fact, you've got a Speaker of the House and this Dade Phelan guy who's an idiot who keeps on making coalitions with the left, and they're giving out chairmanships to Democrats who are in the vast minority. They're literally acting as if the Democrats have the majority, and that's why you're seeing what you're seeing, I would assume.
I moved to Texas because the politics in my beloved birth state of Michigan that I still fight nonstop to get us back to God, family, country, law, and order. In fact, I'm working on all 50 states, Joe. I'm an extremist because I believe that the American dream has been intentionally chipped away by jackbooted. I use the term jackboot to describe people who abuse their power. And in Michigan, it's become a suburb of San Francisco politically. It's just unbelievable what's going on there. And here in Texas, I expected better, but they're not providing better. Remember Libby's Cafeteria, 24 Texans died because they obeyed an immoral law. In Texas, you weren't allowed to carry a gun. Now, my friends listening on Joe Paggs Radio, listen to this. Your brain's going to blow up. The law in Texas said you could only carry a gun if it's in your glove box, but only if you cross 2 county lines. What the hell is that? So they all died in Libby's because the bad guy doesn't care about your gun control. The bad guy slaughtered 23 innocent Texans because they obeyed an immoral law. And we all know, even Christopher Wray, who's obviously corrupt, he's the head of the jackboot FBI. They've become a gangster organization. He's even warned us that an October 7th outrageous terrorist attack is right around the corner in America. So my friends watching Joe Paggs and Uncle Ted, if you're unarmed and helpless, the terrorists will kill you. Do not be unarmed and helpless. And if you carry a handgun, make sure you have a rifle nearby so you can use your handgun to get to the real gun. If you go to gunowners.org, please, everybody, gunowners.org. Even in Texas, we've got to safeguard the sanctity of the right to keep and bear arms. Gunowners.org. That's the organization that's fighting the strongest.
It's Ted Nugent, rock and roll legend. Go to tednugent.com. Find out about these select dates that he's doing in Texas and the surrounding areas, and make sure you go and you be in the front row if you can. We just had Karine Jean-Pierre, who is the paid liar for the press secretary job. Today, right before I came on with you, she literally said that they're really proud that they passed this background check, the strongest and the best background check they've passed since 1973 when it comes to our Second Amendment rights. Ted, what is the end goal? Just to disarm all of us and only they have the guns? That's got to be what it is, right?
They've made that perfectly clear. But this Jean-Pierre, how embarrassing would it be if you were hired because of the color of your skin and your gender confusion? On what
She
planet,
admitted that on day one. She said
on
that.
what planet are those qualifications? This whole Uncle Sam administration is all about spiritual inbreeding, cannibalism, and she's the perfect poster creature for that. These are horrible, horrible, nasty, oath-violating people. And I can summarize it thusly, Joe. There is none, it pains me deeply to have to say this, but the evidence is irrefutable. There is not a governmental bureaucracy that any conscientious American trusts anymore. The FDA is supposed to safeguard our food and drugs. They guarantee it's chemical warfare. Same with the USDA, the CDC, the FBI, the ATF, the Fish and Wildlife Service, the FBI. Nobody trusts these bureaucracies. Our government is out of control. The entire Uncle Sam gang is now the bad guy. So I'm hoping people are registered to vote, and they vote God, family, country, Constitution, Bill of Rights, 10 Commandments, Golden Rule, Declaration of Independence, work ethic, being the best that you can be. And all those things I just mentioned are kryptonite to Uncle Sam right now. How heartbreaking is that?
It's unbelievable the times we live in, but we can change it. You know, this was going to happen 4 years earlier, but Trump set it off its course.
Yes.
And thank God he did, because it exposed a lot of what it is that we're living with right now, because now they're on steroids. Now they're trying to take away your guns and have the border be wide open. The WEF and the WHO control everything that we do and say. So we need to have Trump back in there. But let me ask you this. You're somebody who's been in the business of publicity for the great, rock and roll that you play and for your own thoughts for 60 years. Are we doing a good enough job on our side communicating exactly what's true versus what's false? They are inundating and flooding Americans every day with lies about Trump, lies about the border, this stupid Senate bipartisan bill. H.R. 2 was passed a year ago that would have closed the border. I mean, they're just lying every single day about guns and about the gun. They're saying that children, the biggest rate of death in children is guns. That's a lie. They're excluding everybody 1 year old and younger. They're just taking that number out. Yeah. So are we doing a good enough job on our side in communicating the truth as we try to thwart off all the lies they're throwing at us?
Joe, you're doing a good job. Rush Limbaugh did a great job.
Yeah.
Mark Levin does a great job. Jesse Waters does a pretty damn good job. Dan Bongino does a great job. Michael Berry does a great job. Mark Davis does a great job. Lars Larson does a great job. All these talk show hosts and these different organizations, even Shemaine and I are on Ted Nugent's Spirit of the Wild television. It's about celebrating the great outdoor conservation lifestyle, but we weave in concerns about issues that are chipping away at our quality of life. And I have a Real America's Voice, and if you can watch it tonight, Friday night, I really get into it. On Real America's Voice, I have a spirit campfire. It's an hour long every Friday night. Shemaine does her Faith and Freedom every Sunday. So we are doing a good enough job. But unfortunately, there's a bunch of zombie sheep out there that still believe ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, and government bureaucrats, all those agents, all those entities I just named, they're the enemy of freedom. There's not an honest fiber in that entire world out there in academia, media, government, big tech. I mean, I'm censored. People can make false allegations. Well, he's a pedophile, and I'm not even allowed to respond. Well, he's a draft dodger. I didn't dodge the draft. Everybody knows that, but they keep saying it. So those qualify, those false accusations qualify as community standards, but my response is against their community standards. Think of that.
Yeah.
Think of the trouncing of the First Amendment by big tech. But here I am on Joe Paggs. And by the way, you see that smile on my face? You know it don't come cheap. Sure, I live the American dream. Go ahead and crucify me. My point is that those of us that are on constitutional authority, and again, we humbly genuflect at the altar of the Constitution, truth, logic, common sense. We are doing a damn good job. But overall, the Republican Party, they're not doing as good a job as Joe Paggs and Ted Nugent and Shemaine Nugent. They've got to tune in. I did the GOP convention here 2 days ago in Waco, and all the elected employees got up and made their statements, and they got some reasonably occasional polite applause. Joe, when I got done speaking for about 10 minutes, the whole place stood up because I said what they're all thinking, but they're afraid to say it. Truth, logic, and common sense. That's why you deserve me, because you're a truth, logic, and common sense crowbar daddy. But we are doing a good job, but the GOP is not paying attention to the true pulse of the working hard, playing hard American families. You do. I do, but the GOP does not.
I want to get into the minutia a little bit, because what you just said is absolutely 100% true. Absolutely. But here's the question. When they say draft dodger, pedophile, whatever, do you have to defend against that, or do you just keep on telling the truth and ignore them? When they say the Senate did a bipartisan bill that would fix the border, that's a lie. It won't fix the border. It'll hire a bunch of administrators and send money overseas. H.R. 2, which passed a year ago in the House, is sitting on Chuck Schumer's desk. Nobody's talking about it. So what I try to do is I try to say, I'm going to ignore your BS about the bipartisan bill and ask you why we haven't passed into law the bill that will actually close the border. So do we have to deflect and respond to their attacks, or do we just tell the truth and ignore it?
Well, the ultimate way to convince people of, again, truth, logic, common sense. You're a truth, logic, and common sense guy. You could have wrote the 10 Commandments, Joe.
I don't know about that, but
you could have wrote the Bill of Rights, and you just stop and think, what doesn't King George allow us to do? Well, let's write down each one, and those are the things we're allowed to do. So it's common sense. But let me tell you, I've said this before to you, and everything out of my mouth is rather profound, if I do say so myself.
Truth.
But the most important thing I've ever shared with you, and you agree because it's irrefutable, that communism, Nazism, liberalism, Democrats, bureaucrats, those are curses on mankind. Worse than all those things, apathy. I
Yes.
want people to write down hunternation.org. It's not about killing deer. Hunternation.org is a nonprofit where we have gone state to state. And look what we did in Louisiana. We finally got the apathetic licensed hunters of Louisiana, 62,000 of them, Joe, that had never voted before. I did a robocall. We did knocking on the door. We met with them and we said, you're complaining about conditions. You believe in God, family, country, and law and order, but you're not voting people in who will represent God, family, country, and law and order. So we got them to vote. Hunternation.org. It's about chipping away at the worst curse of mankind, and that is apathy, while idiots stand back and allow evil to metastasize. Hunternation.org. I hope people join us. I hope they get involved, and we can take back, even in the fraudulent elections. I mean, finally, the Supreme Court is hearing the irrefutable avalanche, bombardment of evidence that the 2020 election was not true. It was not legal. Joe Biden did not get 81 million votes. We found millions that were signed by dead people, by non-citizens, and by the same person who harvested those ballots and filled in the ballot. It's runaway, and the great Mike Lindell has spearheaded this. It's going to the Supreme Court. So we're on track, but the 2024 election, all I can say, Joe, Donald Trump is the guy. Yeah. He's the guy who will bring safety, security, no wars. The liberals claim that Trump will create wars. The liberals created wars. Trump had no wars. Trump respected hard-earned tax dollar payers. He didn't burn it like the Joe Biden snakes are doing. So Donald Trump, if people really believe in God, family, country, Constitution, individual freedoms, law and order, Donald Trump is the guy. I pray to God we get America back on track, because right now the Democrats they're forcing us into the final toilet flush of indecency, and Donald Trump can fix that.
TedNugent.com. It's the Motor City Madman, rock and roll legend Ted Nugent. Go there and find out about these dates. Going to be some select cities, select areas where he's going to continue to play. Not doing the big national tours anymore. So go and catch Ted Nugent where you can and when you can. Buy every book. Get all of his music, and definitely check him out. And he and Shemaine both, who do a great job on television, on social media, everywhere. I want to leave you with this. As we're looking forward to getting Trump back in, and we didn't have time to get into all this, I want people watching and listening to realize, and Ted and I have talked about this a lot, for every new regulation, he got rid of two. We were energy independent. We were a net energy exporter. We did not have one new war on this planet, and the Taliban themselves were afraid of him, and they were going to do what he wanted to do to get out of Afghanistan, not screw it up like Joe Biden did. Ukraine was not happening because Russia was afraid of him. Iran wasn't flying drones over Israel because they were afraid of him. Ted, I mean, I want to leave people with that notion that as much as you don't like his hair or how he speaks or how he tweets, it doesn't matter. We have 4 years of recent history that showed that we can be great.
Ditto, ditto, ditto. Here it is in a nutshell. The Joe Biden gang left $82 billion worth of state-of-the-art military weaponry in the hands of the Taliban, but they want us to have limitations on our goose gun. This is Planet of the Cuckoo's Nest stuff. Joe, you are right on the money. God bless you. Everybody on the streets of the not so mean America, they thank Joe Paggs, because your truth, logic, and common sense, you're spotlighting cockroaches, you're doing God work. Stay on course, my friend.
My honor to have you as a friend, Ted. Thank you so much. Go to TedNugent.com. And again, take in everything he and Shemaine do. It's unbelievable how much knowledge you can gain while enjoying it at the same time. Thank you, brother. We appreciate you, Ted.
You bet. Godspeed. Happy turkey season, everybody. Rock and roll like you mean it.
Right back at you. We're back after this. Stay right here.